Pick up your gear and open your chests. Throw on your armor and head out on a quest. Hey, hey, it's a brand new day. On the Sword Coast, your allies will help with blades and bows and magic as well. Hey, hey, heroes on their way. Fighting forever against overwhelming odds. Fighting together in favor of multiple gods. Idle champions of the forgotten realms. Idle champions, adventure never ends. Idle champions, get you all out there. Idle champions, you will say again. Idle champions. From Waterdeep to Astorio, head out to show, all Shadowfell, hey, hey. Together we stay. Walk to the monsters, walk to the boss, walk to the right, it's never a loss, hey, hey. Bad guys to slay. Fighting forever against overwhelming odds. Fighting together in favor of multiple gods. Idle champions of the forgotten realms. Idle champions, adventure never ends. Idle champions, get you all out there. Idle champions, you will say it again. Idle champions.
It's that time again, folks. It's time to walk right and smack bosses in the face. It's time for Gaarawarr's Guide. Untitled Champions, but today, specifically, Gaarawarr's Guide to Dragondawn Year 4. That includes the new champion Selise Astorio, as well as Nova and Korth from prior event years. So yeah, we're gonna talk about all those things today. Usual disclaimers at the beginning of the show. This is a tutorial stream, so for the first hour, it's going to be me talking at you. Not answering questions, just going over all the content and all the information so that you have it in as quick and condensed a form as possible for your post-later viewing pleasure, if you need to re-reference it. And then the second hour will be Q&A. Those are rough estimates. Sometimes we're done a little sooner, sometimes a little later. It just depends. Also, if you do have questions that you just feel like they're burning at you, they're coming up while we're talking, and you want to know the answer, you can type it into chat. You type it right into chat. We've got Jay in here on the CNEJ account this morning, pulling questions, throwing them in the document for me, and I will get to them later. They've got 29 holding spots for you for the moment. They'll add more. You can ask even more questions. You can ask more questions than that. Usually you do. And we'll get to them. I'm going to start. Normally I start right off with champion stuff when we do these event things. I'm going to do well, I talk a little bit about the event, and then I go into champions, and we talk about their variants, but I'm going to do this a kind of in a different order today. Today I'm going to talk about the event first, specifically one little tip and trick for the event for some players if you have certain champions. I think people know the boss by now. The boss for this event is a big old dragon, and it's armored. So what does that mean? Well, let's go take a look. This is what it looks like. This is our dragon boss. The dragon boss is armored. It has like breath weapons that do different things, as you can see, like from the red popping up. There's AoE damage to the whole party. There's some single target attacks. The dragon's got a lot going on, and it's got all these little wormlings coming out and giant crabs and just going crazy, and sometimes it's very difficult to clear these off quick enough to get to the dragon and hurt it. But as you can see, if we hover over the dragon, it does say it's armored. Here at level 800, that means 50 armored segments plus, well, at all levels it's 50 armored segments, but right now we're at E214 health. We had some people asking yesterday about, well, how do you know how much damage you have to do to remove a segment? So I thought we'd go over that again here today. So it's just some quick maths. It is better if you do this in scientific notation mode. To do that, you can either go into the settings, choose scientific notation at the bottom, or you can, if you have a keyboard, you can hit the button Y, and it will swap into scientific notation. So we look over here on the right, it says 336E 214 HP. So if I want to know how much in the E's damage I need to do, well, I need to divide by the number of segments it has, and then at max. At max, the number of segments, there's 25 red ones and 25 yellow ones when it has a yellow bar. That's 50. So that means straight off I can drop one of those E's with the 0. So I can get rid of the 0. That takes me down to 336E 213 HP, because I'm basically moving the decimal place over 1. And then I just have to divide that by 5, which ends up being, something like 6 something E212. Because 336E213 divided by 5 ends up somewhere around there. So I'm looking at 7E212, or if I just want to think about it straight, I just 1E213. I can look at my bud. My bud is definitely doing that much damage. I'm definitely doing that much damage. I may have dropped down a little bit to make this easier for everybody. So if I were to, while it's difficult for me to clear out all of these super fast, if I were to do something that just nukes the whole screen, I can get to the boss real quickly. So that's one way to think about this. But there is another little trick. If you have crawl, it's something I like to call the crawling. The crawling does not work. I'm telling you in advance. The crawling does not work if you have lots of speed potions or speed effects going. I have one huge potion of speed. I can pull it off with this. If I have, maybe not on all platforms with speed, but I can pull it off for this on PC with one. You may have to have none to pull this off in some cases. Basically, the speed with which the game is reading your button presses is going to determine whether you can pull this off or not. So what I'm going to do is I came back a level. I'm going to swap Krullen because I've already set a high bud, so I don't need a Shar as my DPS. I'm going to swap Krullen and I'm going to rely on this bud to fire off Krull's ult right as the scene transitions. What does that do, Gaarawarr? Well, when Krull's ult fires off, it's kind of like it's like 4 little homing missiles, and they target the first enemy they see on the screen, and they go unerringly towards them. Well, when you have a stationary boss like this dragon is, if you do this right as you're transitioning into that screen, all they see is the boss. So even though enemies appear after that and may try to get in the way and body block for the boss, the ghouls just kind of dip and dodge and go right around them and nail the boss. And if you have the bud to do it, if you have the damage, Krull's ult just deletes the boss. This is damage dependent on armored bosses. However, tip and trick for future events and maybe even just in-game bosses in general, if it is a hits-based boss, where when you hover it over it just says 50 HP, and all you need to do is 1 point of damage, this just deletes them no matter the level. Level 1000, sure. Level 1000, the boss has 50 HP. The Krullening works. To a lesser extent, this works with Dinar, but only if you can land his ultimate, which is a little more difficult. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to swap to Krull. I'm going to hit the transition, spam a button, nuke the boss, and it just gets deleted. That's it. It's that fast if you do it right. Now, again, you do need the damage because this is an ultimate. This is an ultimate. So you do need the bud for that. So it can get more difficult as you get up higher. But there are some stages when you, like even here, I was having trouble clearing off all of this trash. Had to use an ultimate to clear the screen to get to the boss. Otherwise, it was going to take a while. You can avoid that. You can avoid that with this method. So yeah, so that's my tip and trick. I'm going to bail out of this. Oh, hey, I did get some favor. Hey, I'm up to E37. All right. I'm going to bail out of this and we will talk about... Oh, I only got a silver chest. So basically when you do free plays for champions, folks, if you didn't know this already, you get a random chance once you complete level 50 to get either a silver or gold chest. It's a 1 in 3 chance to get a gold, but there's a pity timer, aka RNG protection, bad luck protection, that guarantees you'll get one out of every 4. And the max token cost for event free plays is 2,500. It starts at 500 and goes up to 2,500. So, you know, it's much better to do 4 free plays for 10,000 tokens and get at least 1 gold chest guaranteed with a chance at 3 more than to just buy something out of the store for 10,000 tokens. Don't do that, folks. Don't do that. This is what this is how, if you're over on the Sword Coast and you're starting this, hey, down here at the bottom, Dragondawn. If you don't see Dragondawn right now in your game client, restart your client. You do need to do that when events drop. Events drop on Wednesdays every 3 weeks. Every 3 weeks. So you know, if you don't see this at the bottom of the campaign banner, you know, restart. Come over here. It's going to look like this at first, except these aren't going to say free plays. You're going to have a chance to unlock Korth, Nova, and Selise. These first unlock missions, definitely do all of them. Treat them like favor pushes, because you're going to start this with 0 favor, and you're going to need that favor to do all the variants. So you're always going to want to grab each one, and then, bam, it's going to open up a bunch of variants. Variants are always these little underlying adventures that they're going to look exactly like this in terms of the formation layout. As you can see, all the same formation layout, but they're going to be harder. They're going to be harder because the regular adventure has no restrictions, but these all do. So let's start off with Korth. Korth is our lizard folk samurai. He is a CNE original champion. That means he didn't exist anywhere else before existing in this game. So in Korth's first variant, area objective 75, only champions with an O or a K in their name can be used. Okay then. Pretty straightforward. I mean, you can pull up this. There's no easy way to filter this on sites or whatever, but I have a list that's, well, I need to go double check. It probably doesn't have the most recent champions in it. But this one's pretty straightforward. You can just look at the names and tell. So an interesting restriction, probably one of the more interesting ones that exist. Yeah, not super difficult. You only have to get to Area 75. The costs, some people are like, why are these so cheap? And then the new champion's so expensive. It's that this is the normal cost of a champion's variants. 1,000, 2,500, 5,000. These are discounted at a quarter of the cost because they're the older champions. This is just kind of the way that the game made it, because tokens are fixed gain, and they didn't want to, as they added more champions to each event and capped out at 3, they didn't want to make it so that you just couldn't keep up and it was a waste of tokens, right? So they just discounted these previous ones. Just discounted the previous ones. All right, of course, Kobold cleanup crew. Area 125, as usual. The first one is 75, the second is 125, the third is 175. Of course, starts out in the formation. It cannot be moved, removed, or swapped out. So this is the It's Time to Learn Korth variant. Armored kobolds spawn in each area. They have 5 armored hits, but cannot be damaged until Korth marks them. So this is a function of Korth that we'll go over. But basically, Korth attacks the nearest enemy and marks them, and then that applies all of his effects when your DPS then starts attacking. This means that Korth is not great and almost unusable with champions like Jarlaxle. who always attacks the furthest enemy away. So you're going to need to find a different DPS, especially for this one. You would want to do that anyway, because anytime you're facing armored things, armored like trash mobs like this, you want a DPS that has multi-attack, frankly. Not AoE like Minsk. You want multi-attack like Ashara or Hitch. Because you want to hit you want to have as many bounced or different attacks as possible going off to just chew through this armor. So this one's going to be better with like Ashara or Hitch as your primary DPS. I know Hitch doesn't have a DPS tag. He says support, but he actually does viable DPS when you're a newer player. Even sometimes later on, but not as much as Ashara. Ashara is going to wreck fools if you can build her bonds, but by 125 you're not going to necessarily be able to do that. So you can use Ashara or Hitch here. So keep that in mind. Also, well, this one isn't... Yeah, I think as long as you're doing that, you're probably not going to see a lot of issues. As always, my rule of thumb is make sure that you have enough favor for these to show as difficulty easy. This is based on favor, these ratings. This is... you need to be this tall to ride this ride. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to enjoy the ride once you get on it, because the restrictions may make it super challenging and you may hate it. It may just beat you apart. So you have to look at just the first kind of goal is make them show as easy, and then you need to read this and apply some of your intelligence stat. Hopefully it's not your dump stat, to figure out how much favor you're going to need and whether you can complete it. These take less. This takes less favor than this. This takes less favor than this. Usually it's about EO 8-ish to get this one to show green, which means they all show as green. In this event, you're probably going to want to target E10 to E12 for some of these later variants, because some of them are real tough. So keep that in mind when you're doing your deep pushes for favor. Target should probably be in this event to make sure you can do everything as a newer player E12, which may take a week for you to get to. It just depends on your formation and your overall power. So keep that in mind. People can help you out in the Discord or post on the subreddit. But there's a formations channel in the Discord and a new player channel. They'll do you right. Durable Dragon, the final variant for Korth. It's the 175 one. When the dragon boss in area... this one. When the dragon boss in Area 50 is defeated, she immediately resurrects with additional armor hits. This got updated at some point. Plus 20% more armor, attack speed plus 25%, and damage plus 33%. She gains an additional resurrection and stacking bonuses for every 50 extra areas completed. This is like if Valindra was a dragon. For those of you who have done the Dragon Bait unlock. It's rough, folks. It's rough. This is one of those where I'm like, yeah, maybe E12. Maybe E12 favor. This is one of the reasons why I said E12. You're going to need a lot of power and a lot of survivability. So make sure your tank, like if you're using Nayeli, make sure she's in Devotion, because that boss with its AoE will wreck your entire party. It'll wreck your backlines and you kill your squishies. So you need some survivability. But you also need lots of damage to take the armor off. It's a catch-22. So yeah, keep that in mind. This one's going to be rough. And if you don't finish it this event, that's fine. That's fine. You can wait until next year, or you can pick it up at some point in a time gate. Because the time gate's going to give you any variants you haven't done yet. So if you do these other two and you only have this one, and then you do a Korth time gate, you're going to get this one. All right, Nova. Let's go on to Nova. Korth, oh, by the way, we'll go into this when we end the screen. Korth is a support champion. Technically support healing, but it's not heals, it's temp HP shields. They classify that into the same thing. Nova's our tank support. So, failed perception. Novas are... Yeah. Anytime they're restricting based off a stat, it's going to be interesting. Only champions with Wiz 14 or lower can be used. Usually it's higher. This one goes the other way. Whenever an enemy spawns, there's a 25% chance that it will be an illusory enemy and won't count towards quest progress or drop gold. When an illusory enemy is killed with a normal attack, the champion that killed the enemy is stunned for 10 seconds. This is a challenging first variant. You only need to get to 75, which is helpful. But that means but because of these restrictions, you're probably still going to want this second one to show easy before you try to do this one. Because you're going to need some extra favor here, because as you start getting further in, if you're a new player, the only champion that's going to be killing anything is going to be your primary DPS. And if it's stunned for 10 seconds, that means you're not killing anything else. So your tank's going to be eating a lot of damage, and over-leveling compared to your level by having more favor is going to be useful. So keep that in mind. Plus, depending on your bench, Wiz 14, I'd have to look at... In my guide, I list out all the champions, so you can pre-check what champions you want to do. And this I should probably explain every time we do this as well. Whenever you have a difficult variant... that's restrictive on the champions you can use. So like champions with an OK in their name or wisdom score 14 or lower. The way to tell if you can do this without wasting tokens, because remember, if you spend your 250 Dragon Claws to go into this and then can't do it, you just got to bail. You're not going to be able to farm tons and tons of favor, because you should never farm more than a half an hour anywhere. Like that's... You're going to get your effective farm in there. You're not going to get a whole lot to be able to push further, unless you're like one level away. Like if you got 74, you could be 74, but you couldn't be 75. Sure, you can farm that, but if you're 10, 15 levels away, you ain't going to make it, folks. So instead, go into a free play and only use champions that meet this restriction. You're going to have to manually figure that out. I put those in my guide. Or you can use some of the fan sites have filters that'll show you which champions are in what slot will let you do it. Go to the free play, put your own restrictions in, basically. You can't do this other stuff, but you can do this. And then see if you can beat this requirement. Now, if it has other restrictions like these, shoot for another 25 levels. Try to beat 100, right? Or if it's 125, try to beat 150. If it's 175, try to beat 200, right? See if you can do that with those restrictions in place. If you can, great. Go try it out. Go do it. Go do it. You're probably fine. If you're super worried, try to go 50 levels instead of 25, right? You can test your might, as it were, in a free play. And if it turns out that you can't, if you get to 65 with those restrictions and you need to get to 75 and you just can't power through, you haven't wasted anything, because you can then just switch into a full formation, push deep, grab yourself some more favor. Okay, because favor is what's going to really help you in an event. Favor is your biggest friend. So pushing deep for more favor lets you overpower variance. What does that mean? Basically, you're leveling more than you normally would have just when you just barely met the requirements. And overpowering variance is the easiest way to do variance in events. So you can just, test your might in the free play by self-restricting, and then free yourself up at the end. Always free yourself up at the end and push deep for more favor. Even if you met the restrictions, don't just bail. Push deep, because you're going to need that favor somewhere else, or it's just nice to have favor, right? So do that. That'll help you out with things like failed perception, and when we get down here to Selise, she has a lot of these. Trance Travelers, 125. 2 of the slots in your formation are affected by a magical spell that's causing folks around Luskan to start snoring. So this is telling you you're going to lose a couple champ slots. The affected slots change every 15 seconds by moving to a random adjacent slot. Champions in affected slots must concentrate on not falling asleep, so they do not attack, and all their formation abilities and ultimates are disabled. You are randomly down 2 champion slots, and it changes, and it's every 15 seconds. And yes, at some point this is going to hit your DPS. At some point it's going to hit your tanks. So keep this in mind, because when it disables formation abilities and ultimates, that's a big deal. So this is one of those. Anytime you're down a champion slot, so in things like failed perception, or it's all going to be okay, if you can't fill out your entire formation, you need at least EO1 more favor per champion slot, maybe EO2, that you've lost. Maybe even more. This is just, you're going to have to figure that out depending on how many you're down. So if you're down 2 champion slots here, that means you're going to need more favor than normally this would give you, like with it showing as easy. So again, this is where you go, well, I'm down 2 champion slots. Let me get the third one showing as easy before I attempt that. That's kind of a good rule of thumb, right? But again, you can also just try this and just use 8 champions in a free play. Can you do it with 8 champions? There's no other restrictions. Now, obviously, you're going to be losing some champions, so, you know, you've got to keep that in mind. So, you know, instead of going 25, maybe go 50. See if you can get to 175 in a free play. But those are the ways you use free plays to help determine if you can do variants and thus not waste tokens. Now, I get that these costs aren't too large, but these are. Like 5,000? You want to try the 5,000 one without knowing you can do it? For sure? Maybe not. So the final one, Dolgrim Incursion for Nova. Champs with an int 14 or higher, so again, restrictive variant. You're gonna want to you may want to test this one in a free play. And keep in mind, you can test all of these in the same free play. If you just push, if all of these show as easy, but you just want to know, you can go in and run this one for the beginning, and then switch out to like 8 champions after that, but whatever you want, and then switch out to int 14 or higher. You can do all this in one free play if you want, right? Just to see, why not? Nova begins in the formation and can't be moved, so it's time to use Nova. Dolgrims appear at a rate of 2 per wave. They drop no gold and do not count towards quest progress. Dolgrim's movement speed is doubled and their damage is increased by 400%. So this is the are you tanky enough? It's time to learn Nova formation. Now the nice thing is you get 3 tank slots. So this helps whenever you have multiple tanks. This actually helps you in your tanking and your pushing because you're distributing all of the damages across 3 instead of focusing it all on 1. So just make sure you got some beefy frontliners here. You're going to have Nova. You've already got Nayeli. Make sure she's in Devotion. If she's usable, I don't know if she's usable here. Int 14. Ooh. Yeah, I'd have to check my sheet. But make sure you've got some tankiness up here, if you can. Don't just fill in tank slots with DPS champions. That's not gonna work. Get actual tank slots up here. So again, self-restrict yourself with Int 14 or higher. Try to get to level 200 and complete level 200. If you can do that, especially with this boss, because this is a bit more difficult of a boss, you should be able to then beat this. Selise, our newest champion, the newest arrival. Her stuff is restrictive. So you may be running some free plays here just to learn. And her formation. Okay, let's go back. I didn't talk about the formations. People always want to know what kind of formations are good. Well, this is clearly a single tank formation. If you've got a super beefy tank that you like to use that maybe isn't Nayeli, this is a good formation for pushing because there's lots of adjacencies, but your DPS is probably going to want to be back here in the 3rd line, which means Nayeli can't buff from there. So keep in mind that this is not necessarily a Nayeli deep push formation. You're going to want to be using Tyrell or Nova or somebody else, right? But still, Course is good for pushing. Nova's is as well. This one you can use Nayeli in, but you're going to need 2 other tanks. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes if what is failing you at your wall is your tank, and not your damages, then splitting out this here to get more can be helpful, and then you could stack up your adjacencies in here, and you still have, like, say, an extra, expanded thing, and that's sitting out by itself, and that can be useful for, like, Makos or whatever. So this is not bad. Not bad. This is not a good pushing formation. Not great. I think we had some questions about why this might be a good gym pushing formation, but that's not necessarily going to help new players. But I'm interested to see what veterans think, because you put Jim right here in the 2nd row, and then he gets 7 bonuses for one of his abilities that's based off the people that are in front of and behind him, which is very rare. Very rare. But I don't know. This one's This one's rough, folks. This one's rough. All right. So Selise, in this rough one, so we already know we're going to be a little challenged in our pushes because of the formation layout. So go ahead in this one and just make sure you're running free place to test your might. Area 75, Selise starts in the formation, but she can be moved or removed. So they're not forcing you to use her, but they would like you to. Only champions with a strength of 13 or higher can be used. So these are the beefy people. And then there's some information on getting to know Selise and how she works. Again, these are the kind of they're trying to encourage you to learn the champion here, bit by bit. And we'll go over Selise in a moment. Tears of Tyr. Selise starts in the formation again. She can be moved or removed. While in outdoor areas, rain falls, increasing the speed and attack damage of enemies by 100%, so doubling it. Champion's base attack cooldowns are increased by 1 second, so you're attacking slower. That means your bud's going to be lower. Only champions with a wisdom of 13 or higher can be used. So again, restrictive, but you can test this out in free play. And again, it tells you another tip about Selise. The Endless Claws. Again, Selise starts in the formation, but can be moved or removed. Crawling claws appear in each area. They deal 200% additional damage. When a crawling claw is destroyed by anyone other than Selise, it immediately respawns and continues its attack. Crawling claws do not count towards quest progress, nor do they drop any gold. So, yeah. Again, they're trying to teach you the different ways that Selise is useful in a formation, and each one of these restrictions and things that are going on are things that you can potentially overcome with some of her stances. But it's going to make things, it just makes things more difficult. So at least this one doesn't restrict you on who you can use. So you're just dealing with some extra damage and potentially things beating on your tanks endlessly, and that's fine. Just again, make sure you've tested out. Make sure you've got enough favor. If you were able to do Dolgrim Incursion, if you got enough favor to do Dolgrim Incursion and Durable Dragon, specifically Durable Dragon, then you should be able to do Endless Claws. Shouldn't be a big deal. Let's hop back into a Selise free play and take a look at. Did I turn off my Modron? I did. Okay. Let's take a look at the other champions. Okay. Korth is our slot 2 champion. So let's throw our Lizard Folk Samurai out. He's pretty cool, folks. He's pretty cool. Oh, wrong. There we go. Healing support. Again, the healing is temp HP shields, not actual heals. So keep that in mind. This is potential shields, and it's restrictive. We'll go over the restrictions. It's kind of based around how his base attack works and his marked ability works, but it's all around the base attack. Samurai Slice, of course, starts out and attacks the nearest enemy with his samurai sword. So we're looking at nearest enemy attacking. And that matters, because this is why Korth does not necessarily work with Jarlaxle. Jarlaxle attacks the furthest enemy. Korth's stuff is based on Lizard Folk tactics and his marked debuff. So whenever Korth attacks an enemy, that enemy gets a marked debuff. A champion that attacks one or more marked enemies gets a single 0.25 second reduction to their next base attack cooldown. So if you attack what Korth is attacking, you attack faster. And faster in this game means you're setting your bud higher. So that's nice. It doesn't change, just the amount of damage you're doing. But if you're relying on bud-based things, you're going to get a higher bud that way. Fighting Spirit, when a champion attacks a marked enemy, so again, this is all about attacking marked enemies, they get a temporary HP shield with a 15-second cooldown. So it's not a super large one, but it exists if you're attacking that champion. So if you have any support champions that aren't attacking the nearest enemy, like if they're all attacking the furthest enemy, or if they're attacking a random enemy and maybe don't hit the one that he's marked, they're not going to get their shields. So this is not, his Korth's stuff is not reliable for everyone in your formation. It's only reliable for people who are attacking nearest enemies, and you can find that out in their base attack info. It will call out who they're attacking. Calculated. When any champion attacks a marked enemy, there's a theme here. Korth increases the damage of all champions by 25% for 15 seconds. Each in-formation champion can contribute a single stack, and each stack expires separately. So this is great if you have lots of people in your formation that are attacking the nearest enemy, or they're at least hitting it somehow. That does not necessarily mean you build your formation around Korth's ability. It doesn't. It just means that you have to recognize that your usage of Korth can vary based on what your formation ends up being. Rapid Strike. When any champion kills a marked enemy, they get a 25% chance to immediately attack again and have 5 seconds removed from their ultimate attack cooldown. This is really going to just be your primary DPS. Because, first, if you're killing things with your support, that means Korth is killing them, which means he's not marking them. They're dead. That means other support champions are probably killing them too. So this stuff only kicks in. All of Korth's stuff only kicks in once you're to the point where you're not killing things immediately with your support champions. So again, this is another chance to basically, it's a wave clear bonus. You can potentially attack immediately, and you're getting your ultimate back faster. Strength Before Death is kind of the random ability. I think they decided they want to do something cool for our samurai. This is what they did. When Korth's about to die, he is instead resurrected at 1 HP and instantly performs an ultimate attack against the enemy that struck him. This ability has 3 charges, which restore at a rate of 1 per 5 minutes while online. So basically, it's like that last chance to come back up at 1 HP, and he gets 3 chances to exist through fights where he might be dying. So this can be useful in situations like our dragon boss friend here, or against Valindra. I don't recommend using Korth in Valindra's fight, but I'm just using that as an example where you might be dying, but this keeps you alive, but only 3 times, then you're going to be dead. The ultimate that he fires off is Hungry Jaws. Korth leaps to the nearest enemy and ferociously bites them. Rude. Causing massive damage and a bleed for 4 times the base damage over 10 seconds. So it's a bleed effect. If you're gonna kill him, he's gonna try to take you down with him, right? His specializations, these are selected based off how you're placing him in your formation. That's kind of, and what you're looking for from him. So group tactics requires he be adjacent to your DPS, and you're going to get 100% more damage against marked enemies. Again, against marked enemies. So not just overall. So if you could place him adjacent and you just want more damage, group tactics. Rapid training buffs non-adjacent party members. This can be the entire party except maybe 1 or 2 people he's adjacent to, depending on how the formation is located or is set up. He reduces their attack cooldown by 0.25 seconds. So this is an entire party attack cooldown, attack faster, right? When attacking marked enemies. So again, it's if they're hitting it at marked enemies. Additionally, the chance to rapid strike is increased by 25%. So it started out at 25% of a chance to attack twice. It's going to go up to 50% chance. So every other attack, on average, if he's hitting marked enemies, they're gonna attack twice, and their cooldown reduction is, instead of, it started out at 0.25 seconds against a marked enemy, goes up to a half a second reduction. So this is basically you put him non-adjacent if everybody's attacking something that's marked, and this is what the marked looks like. It's this skull with the teeth. If you're attacking things that are marked, they're gonna attack faster and potentially double attack. So great for chewing chunks off of things, great for wave clear, great for applying debuffs if they're stack debuffs. So putting in Korth and Krull, if Krull's attacking the nearest, if Krull is attacking the mark thing, he's attacking more often, he's going to stack more plagues. It can be nice. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to use Korth for this way, but that's the kind of functionality you're getting out of rapid training. And that's the functionality I usually like. I usually like attacking faster with double attacks. That's usually what I like. All right. And that's everything, if I remember correctly. It is. Yay! As a support champion, we do get damage all items. We buff his fighting spirit and his calculated. So you're gonna get, you're gonna get the damages and you're gonna get the shields. As we go back up, just to remind you. So yeah, calculated is all champs damage. Fighting spirit is the shield. So as you can see, I'm now up to with my item levels and upgrades and everything, I'm up to almost 4,000 temp HP shield. It's nice, but it's it's not. It's great if I don't have any tanks in. Makes it look super big, but once you start getting the tanks, it's becomes kind of a small shield. But it's better than nothing. And then we get ultimate attack damage and the cooldown in his ultimate attack because he just wants to bite more often. Under feats, you get the same the same kind of stuff. So all champs damage. You get to buff calculated or fighting spirit. He also has a wisdom ability. This does qualify him for being Githzerai focused if you use him with Narak. So in that specific use case scenario, you might like that. I'm gonna go ahead and throw a familiar here. Next up, where am I? I'm all the way down here. Now we go all the way to the end. Nova. People who started on the Epic Game Store are already pretty familiar with Nova. Nova's a tank champion, Air Genasi Warlock from Aroas, so part of the Heroes Aroas affiliation. 20 Overwhelm. Dissect is the base attack. Nova leaps out and slices through the nearest enemy with Tiangong. If she kills a normal enemy, it will always drop a monster heart. So this is a thing. She collects hearts and minds. Well, hearts and brains, but she's a collector. Curiosity. When Nova is intrinsically curious about the world around her, when monsters are killed, there's a chance she will collect a trophy from it. Serial killer. Someone called a call. Trophies augment her abilities and reset every run. Bosses always drop monster brains, which provide big buffs, cannot lie, but only drop once per boss per run. So what that means is if you're on the boss on 5, you can't sit there and farm 5. Now, when you get to 55, which is the same boss, but just after 50, it will that's considered a new boss. So you want Nova in as early as possible to collect as many boss brains as possible, and you want to leave her in your whole run to get her biggest buffage. Normal monsters have a 10% chance to drop monster hearts. Guaranteed drop if she's killing them. That's only going to happen early on, though. Keep that in mind. But you can farm those indefinitely, so you can get to your wall and just, farm all the monster hearts you want. Discovery. Nova increases the damage of the 5 champions in the formation with the highest intelligence score, and it's buffed by all the stuff she's collected. It's buffed bigger by the boss drops than the regular stuff, which is why you want to collect all the boss stuff that you can. And these are multiplicative things, and that's always nice. Protective field. Nova increases max health of all other champions by 25% of her base max health. I used to say all champs have this. This is all tank champs. This is a tank champ. This is one of the things that defines a tank champ. Currently, Selise doesn't have this, so exceptions to every rule, folks. Exceptions to every rule. So yeah, this is how you make your entire formation more survivable. So that comes in at 60. Close encounter. Nova increases the effect of discovery by a % for each enemy attacking her and each point of enemy boss in rage, stacking additively and then applying it multiplicatively. This is usually another thing that is on all tank champions, but not all. So there are exceptions to this, but this is, you actually want things beating on Nova, and that ramps up her damage. Yeah, I asked Lauren about this yesterday. I never got an update. So Sean said, apparently I see in chat, Sean saying that Selise should have the health share in a future patch. Good to know. But until, oh, and she's got it now on Steam. All right, well maybe we will see it when we go look. We will see and we will talk about it. That'll be great. Yeah, that was something that I noticed. And yeah, if that resolves it, that makes Selise even better, in my opinion. I thought she was pretty good when I was using her, but... All right, slow. Nova's attacks slow the movement of enemies, so this is a survivability feature. But again, she only attacks one enemy, so it's not great. But can't help. It slows them by 50% for 5 seconds. Enemies that are slowed deal half damage to Nova, so that's the big part. She's jumping out, hitting things, especially on bosses. She's reducing the damage she's taking while she's tanking. Taking while tanking. Spec choices. Lately, this depends on the kind of the number of champions you have in your formation, but the default you usually want to go here is Mass Appeal. Applying Discovery to all champions, it's the top 8 champions by int score. Applying it to 8, if you have 8 at least in your formation, is going to help you more than if you just go journaling. So there is some math involved here, but just in general, if you're going to just default click one, default click Mass Appeal. That's going to help you out. So let's go up here. There's a couple more. Yeah, failsafe. This one's... Sometimes abilities are kind of pointless. Korth has that, like with that whole... if he dies, he bites someone and he stays alive. Failsafe is kind of like this. When Nova becomes overwhelmed, so when she's got more than 20 things attacking her, she creates a protective barrier. Tiangong creates a protective barrier around Nova, giving her 250 points of temp HP and stunning her until the shield is broken. If she's overwhelmed, she's taken more than 250 points of damage per attack. She just is. So I've never understood this. Obviously, the amount is increases based off hearts and minds that she's collected. This is for each, specifically brains. Okay, so not hearts, but brains. So it does go up some, but it falls off real quick. And here's the thing: it stuns her, so she can't do anything while she's in it. So it's kind of like, okay, I was doing stuff and I was making myself survivable by attacking things and taking half damage from what I attacked. Now I'm just going to be stunned with a shield until you kill everything. And it only triggers once per area, so it's real weird. Cosmic Resonance is the Heroes of Erois kind of group effect, one of them. Heroes of Erois are automatically buffed by Discovery and are not included in the calculations for highest int score. So when you're running a full Erois campaign, that's a situation where you, depending on who's getting your buff, like who that isn't in Erois is getting your buff, you may not need to go Mass Appeal. You could go with the other spec. Again, so situational dependent. And then Erois Synergy is the big boost. So Nova contributes to Erois Synergy based off the number of people buffed by Discovery. This is why usually going Mass Appeal is the best. And then that's increased by a percentage of the Erois pool. So the more Erois people you're using, the better you're getting here. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, that's everything. All right, so items, support, tank. So we've got damage all champs items. We've got a health item. You get Discovery bonus because everything kind of pumps into Discovery, so it makes it real easy here. And then ultimate stuff. The ultimate is Activate Tiangong. We'll go over that in a second so you can see it. It's not going to look as cool because we're killing everything right away, but yeah, this is the way it is. Increased damage all champions feats, health feats. Those are the big ones for tanks. Health feats I find usually to be more useful than overwhelm feats when tanks even have them. You've got Discovery feats though, so that's great. And you can grab those. She doesn't actually have any overwhelm feats, which is unique. All right, activate Tiangong. Nova levitates up into the air as Tiangong floats in front of the formation. If you haven't figured this out yet, folks, Tiangong is the sword. Releasing 3 waves of blue energy that deal damage to all enemies. The damage is increased by 1% for every 20 Monster Hearts Nova is collected, stacking additively. Here we go. Floaty time. Pulse, pulse, pulse. And then back down to Earth. Kind of neat. I like it. It can just decimate waves. in certain areas, obviously. That is those two champions. Final, third champion. I'm so used to doing just a ton of champions that only having to do 3 is like easy. All right, there's Selise. Selise Astorio. She's so cool looking. I'm a big fan of sword and board tanks, folks. That's what my OC Gaarawarr Grudgekeeper is. So anytime you get in a true sword and board tank, it makes me real happy. The base attack is going to change. So we will go over this in a moment. Because I want to show you what it looks like as it goes through its different changes. Selise is a human paladin tanking in support. She comes from the Rivals of Waterdeep. And it starts off at a lower overwhelm. But this gets adjusted, so keep that in mind. And I want to talk a little bit about overwhelm. This came up recently in Discord. Kind of the single most important factor currently in the game for whether a tank champ is a good tank champ is, does it self-shield? That's not the case with, like, Nova has that self-shield, but it's not great. And it only applies once, so you want a reapplying self-shield. That doesn't exist here. Next, you want to look at, well, how much health does it get? Because honestly, health is the best kind of function of durability in the game currently. And then you look at overwhelm. So that's why I tend to like to buff health with feats first. And then I look, well, do I have enough health? Is what's killing me truly the overwhelm, or is it the health? But usually it's the health. So overwhelm is a nice stat currently, but until they do maybe tweak it in future updates, it's not necessarily the end all be all for tanks. Health usually is. So keep that in mind. So even though it's a lower overwhelm, not really a big deal. I almost said Tanya has multiple specialization choices. Selise has multiple specialization choices, so we will get to those in a moment. But Divine Sense. Increase the damage of champions in the 2 columns behind her. So that's the general buff. You can see it spreading out here. So everyone in those columns, so some nice flexibility in this regard. But we instantly get into what I like to refer to as Stance Revolution. Her ultimate is not an ultimate. It's not. It's a toggle. Not unlike Havalar, for those of you who have Havalar. And not unlike Beetle and Grim, for those of you who have Beetle and Grim. Suppose I could just throw them down here. Hey, Havalar and Beetle and Grim. They also have toggle ults that toggle between different functionalities. Beetle and Grim's literally toggles between 2 champions. Havalar's toggles between the different imp setups. Selise's toggles between her stances. And as you can see, it's a pretty quick cooldown currently. The cooldown may get lengthened based off what I've heard from the developers. But right now it's 5 seconds, so you can toggle between them very quickly. So, she's 4 different stances. Aggressive, Wall, Deflect, and Last Resort. They toggle through in that order. So, you start out in Aggressive, you move into Wall, that toggles into Deflect, that toggles into Last Resort. Then it jumps back to the front into Aggressive. So, it cycles through, and you can cycle through all of them. This is going to come into effect in multiple places, like right away, or base attack in Aggressive, Sword and Board Aggressive. It'll tell you what stance she's in here. Selise attacks the nearest enemy and bashes them, stunning them for 2 seconds. If we toggle into Wall, which I just did with my hotkeys, Selise attacks the nearest enemy and takes 25% less damage for 5 seconds. So, a nice survivability feature in Wall for her. And we're just going to talk about the base attacks for a moment. Then we'll come into the abilities. So when you toggle into... toggle for me. There we go. Sword and Board Deflect. Selise attacks the nearest enemy and damages all enemies in a small AoE. So this is, maybe not as great. AoE isn't a huge thing, but it does apply in AoE, and sometimes that matters for certain things, like when using a combination with Freely, for instance. And then if we toggle into Last Resort, This is my last resort. Okay, there we go. Selise attacks the nearest enemy, damages and knocks back all enemies in a small AoE. That's great. That's great. Right? And then we toggle again, and it takes us back to aggressive. So, you do that by, pushing your hotkey, pressing the ultimate, or sticking a familiar on that ultimate and just letting it rotate. Divine Sense, aggressive. So when in aggressive stats, Divine Sense along with buffing, this is along with. So she's going to buff the 2 columns behind her. Along with that, they have their base attack cooldowns reduced by a half a second while in aggressive. So much faster attack speed for everyone in those 2 columns. Everyone. Blankets. Both those 2 columns. In wall, champions in the same column. So if you're using her in the front line, this is all your tanks. Take 25% less damage from melee attacks. So survivability feature, but for your entire tank line. Deflect, champions affected by Divine Sense take 25% less damage from ranged and magical attacks. So situationally, you can help protect the 2 columns behind you. Where do we have a situation where there's only 3 columns? Oh yeah, Valindra in Astoriel's Resolve. Yeah. Might be. Oh, and it's magical damage. Oh, that might be neat. But there's lots of other places too, right? I mean, that works even here because this dragon, when it does its breath weapon, that's probably considered a magical attack by the game. It's definitely a ranged attack, but one of those 2, protecting at least the 2 columns behind you, that's super nice. Last resort, this is where you can pump up her overwhelm. So it doubles it. So she goes from 15, which is, usually we see people at around 20, up to 30, which is not something that you see. So she goes from having on the lower end of the overwhelm to up at the higher end. You can do this all through the toggles. Shield of Psychomancy, while in aggressive stance, so this is specific to, this is how some of her abilities work. They're specific to the stances. While you're in aggressive stance specifically, Selise will toss her shield in an arc targeted at the furthest enemy every 4th attack. So it's full Captain America here. It deals damage and stuns all enemies hit for 2 seconds, and the effect of Divine Sense is increased for each enemy hit, stacking additively, until she attacks with the shield like that again, or changes stances. So this is just lots of in aggressive. This is a buff to your damage, as well as some survivability because she's stunning enemies, right? So super nice Shield of Psychomancy. Vow of Vengeance, while not in aggressive stance, so in any of the other stances, she increases the effect of Divine Sense for each enemy attacking her. So the Shield of Psychomancy is when you're on the aggressive and things aren't getting to you, to your tank wall. Vow of Vengeance, so when you're not in aggressive stance, she gets that ramping damage bonus. So keep that in mind. Thunderous Smite, when switching from last resort to aggressive stance, so when you're ending that full rotation of her 4 stances and going back to the beginning again, she channels the divine power of Tyr and attacks a random enemy with her sword, dealing Bud-based AoE damage and Bud-based chaining lightning damage from the enemy struck to 5 nearby enemies. This effect can only trigger every... it's normally 160 seconds. I have a feed in that's reducing this. We'll talk about that in a minute. This is listed, Thunderous Smite, and sometimes it was listed down here under ultimate, but it is not her ultimate. Her ultimate is her stance switching, but this is an ultimate-like ability because it's on a cooldown, and it's Bud based. So you can consider this kind of her ultimate, but it's not. That's just stance switching. Keep that in mind. And it is unique in the sense that if you think of it like an ultimate, that you can reduce it with a feat. That's never something we've had before. But this is unique in general because we've never really had an ability that gets its time cooldown reduction by a feat. So that's super neat. So you can basically do that Thunderous Smite more often. I had this feat in specifically because I was grinding her achievement last night, as I was talking about yesterday on the show. Her achievement is about killing 1,000 things with this Thunderous Smite. And the way I did that was in that formation I just had when we started this show. I had to go a ways back from my wall, quite a ways back, to find a place where bud damage was killing things. And then I didn't have I took my DPS out. I just had support champs in, and that built it up so that only ultimates, I put myself in a situation where really only ultimates were killing things. And I just let her rotate through her stances with some speed potions and this feat in, and I got my achievement, and I farmed my achievement that way. So for those of you who are wondering how to farm her achievement, that's how you do it. All right, well, we're getting into her first spec choices. She has 4 specializations. It only shows 3 each time that comes up, but here's how it works. It shows these 3 are your first choices. The 2 that you don't pick in this round are going to show up in the second round, and they're going to add a new one. So keep that in mind when you're making your decisions. Relentless Avenger. So when in wall stance, so these are all stance related, Selise cannot be stunned. Any enemy that attempts to stun her is stunned for 4 seconds. This is great in scenarios where you have bosses that have stuns, or you have some kind of, maybe it's a trash mob that has the power to stun in a variant. This keeps her from getting stunned and potentially stuns them back. Well, who has some stuns? This boss. This boss in this event has stuns. So this could be somewhat useful. You have to see. I haven't tested to see if it stuns them back, but probably it could. It might. Reflective Shield. While in deflect stance, Selise can deflect ranged and magical projectiles back at enemies that shot and or cast them, completely negating their damage and dealing 6 seconds of bud base damage. So this is fantastic against ranged enemies. So ranged bosses or Valindra? Yeah, so keep that in mind. This boss with its breath weapons? Yeah, so, depending on what you're facing is how you make your choices. It's not necessarily that you're always going to pick one or the other. I say that, and then we come to Mithril Skin. While in last resort stance, Selise takes reduced damage the further her health falls below 80%. I like this one if I'm just going generic. And I don't know what I'm facing, because at least I get super cyan survivability out of her. But situationally, you're going to pick something else. So I like Reflective Shield for this current boss, which is really where I'm having the damages seriously applied. And then what it adds the second time around, see, we still get Relentless Avenger and Mithril Skin. It adds Tyr's Eyes. So increases the range of Divine Sense to affect the 3 columns behind Selise rather than just 2. So this is formation dependent. If she's in the tank line and you want to buff 3 columns behind her, because this works in like Tomb of Annihilation is a 4-column formation. You can use her as your tank and buff and Divine Sense everyone behind you. That can be fantastic, right? So keep this in mind. This is just going to be situationally dependent on the formation style. I'm going to go Relentless Avenger here because, again, my situation is I have bosses that do range stuff and bosses that do stuns, and I want to kind of potentially have that functionality available. So let's hop back in here. So as you can see, it shows up under here. Reflective Shield is the first choice. Here we go. Protect the Party got added. There's the health share, 200. Yay! This makes her much more viable than I was looking at yesterday. So if you've read any reviews, keep in mind that those reviews did not, at the time, include Protect the Party, which helps to make her kind of a better tank overall by protecting your party. Relentless Anger was the second specialization choice. Nothing else after that. Items. We have Damage All Champions. We've got a health item. And then, because remember, she doesn't have an ultimate. She doesn't have a real ultimate. So there's no ultimate attack damage, and there's no ultimate cooldowns. That's handled by a feat. She gets 3 ability buffs for items. So she gets buffs of Divine Sense, which is the damagey stuff. She gets Shield of Psychomancy, which again helps to ramp up when she's in aggressive stance. Helps to ramp up the Divine Sense ability. And then Vow of Vengeance, which is when not in divine in aggressive stance, ramps up Divine Sense. So everything here is feeding into Divine Sense. You get effectively 3 items helping, but just in different times. So there's some nice synergy there. The feats, though, damage all champs, and then, hey, look, Divine Sense. Hey, Vow of Vengeance. Shield of Psychomancy. Relentless Avenger. What? Thunderous Smite. What? She's got some wild stuff here. So, again, unusual. She has 3 default feats, 3 gem feats, and 3 chest feats to really go all in on whatever stances you like, or just general. You know, some of this, I'm not. Yeah, so you can go into like Relentless Avenger. While in wall stance, Selise cannot be stunned. Enemy that attempts to stun her is stunned for 4 seconds. Does this take it to 6 seconds? It should. So this should be like the other. Yes, it does. So you can lengthen the stun. Interesting, interesting. So she has some kind of, you know, functionality tweaks based off what you're doing. I feel like I would buff 40% Divine Sense, generally speaking, and then I would have to decide what I liked between like what stance she was going to be in more often. And I feel like she would be in non-aggressive stance more often if I'm rotating with a familiar, in which case I would go Vow of Vengeance 40%. Probably, yeah. But I don't have those yet. So, womp, womp, womp. So I'm going to go back to Psychomancy and 40%. That is a Selise. Astorio. That is all 3 of our champions this event. I do want to touch on some people, you know, have been asking. In general, in events, remember, even though you see a champion up here that says recruit Binwin and Dragondawn, no. Events only give you the most recent 3 champions. We are in year 4, so that means someone gets left out, and that is our friend Binwin. Binwin is only available in time gates now. Now, you can still do all of these numbered achievements in this event, which a long rest was associated with Binwin. However, to do Binwin's achievements, you will need to do a time gates for Binwin. 3 time gates will get you all of Binwin's achievements. All of Binwin's achievements, because the variant ones can always be done in time gates, but you only get 1 variant per time gate. So it's going to take 3. So that is how you do those. The rest, you know, Korth, Nova, and Selise are all doable during the event. Keep in mind, achievements do not... The only things that have to be done during the event are the numbered achievements right here. 175, 225, 275. These are the only ones that have to be done in the event and can't be done anywhere else. All the rest can either be done in normal gameplay outside of the event or in a time gate. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. As for the specific ones, like we already talked about how to best to do Thunderous Smite. Ready for anything. That's, you got to find, you're going to have to, it's real finagly. You got to finagle your formations and what level you're on so that only Thunderous Smite is killing things. And then just with a familiar on the ultimate, or on her ultimate, so to change her stances and cycle it and some speed potions, and you'll get there. For Nova, collect 5,000 monster hearts. That's basically just use Nova. Just use Nova. Just throw her in. You don't necessarily have to farm her. If you just use her consistently, you're going to get there. And rapidly striking for Korth, again, it's just triggering his rapid strike bonus 1,000 times. So just use Korth and Nova, and you'll get them. You don't have to farm these. These are just functional, use them and you get them type things. Selise's is a bit, I mean, if you used her a lot and you cycled, you would eventually get this, but yeah, you might just want to farm that. All right, so we are a little over the hour. Like I said, sometimes there's a little more to talk about. So we are going to take a short break. We're going to listen to Selise's song. They already did it. She was on Bardic Inspiration. Tony was on Bardic Inspiration this week. And they created a song for Selise, and it's called Soaking Away Regret. We're going to listen to that right now. I'm going to drink some water from my voice. And then we're going to come back, and we are going to get into all the questions. How many do we have so far in the list? We got 31 so far in the list. So we should be able to get through those and any new ones that are added after that in a moment. I will be right back, folks.
Time away from foe. Did some good things and the battles were no joke. Think I settled in for the night with a book and a nice long soul. Gonna doff my armor and hang up my clothes. Take some time to run a whetstone down my blade. Wash the stains from my plate and think of the choices I made. Raise a tear that I'll come to the end of this day. Need some downtime to soothe the nerves I've been free. Set that glass of whiskey down upon my sheet. Take a moment to recover and be healed. Tomorrow I'll be right up there fighting on the field. So tonight I'll raise my glass and drink a tea. Please forgive me for the things I do. You won't see me kneeling down to you. I take some time when my quest is through. The body cloud I sadly must prove. Set that glass of whiskey down upon my sheet. Take a moment to recover and be healed. Tomorrow I'll be right back out there fighting on the field. But tonight I'll raise my glass and drink tea. Sinking further down, sliding back, walking memory lane, following my track. Those I lost, to those I must attack. Remembering those that haunt me as I fade to black. Set that glass of whiskey down upon my sheet. Take a moment to recover and be healed. Tomorrow I'll be right back out there fighting on the field. But tonight I'll raise my glass. Tonight I'll raise my glass. Yeah, tonight I'll raise my glass and drink tea.
And we're back already. Yay! Yay for music. I love those songs. All right. So we're going to dive into all the questions that have come in. Do I need... let's just swap. Get a little faster action going on here. Not that there's a whole lot. I'm just going to leave these 3 in. Not going to add any more. Just because, hey, why not see them all? Why not see them all? Oh, and I'll just cycle through these. Okay, well, let's do this with a more timely flump, because Prism's so cool. All right, B.A. Billy G. I've been reading some Reddit posts and heard that you could buy gold chests for time gate only champions with event tokens. Is this true? I cannot seem to be able to do it, but some people are swearing you can. So, I mean, if you're using the interface here, clearly no Benwin. Clearly no Benwin. Are some people using other kind of game file manipulation methods to do that? Probably. But there isn't a intended way to do that. I'll put it that way. Can you explain loot levels and how to get more? Untharian, yeah. Yeah, one of these days, maybe they'll update that to say item levels, because that's what it is. It's item levels. It's your total item levels that you've gotten. Item levels are dictated by, getting champions. Here, this is more realistic looking numbers. Getting champions, opening up chests for them, and any duplicates you get increase the item levels. You can also increase item levels by blacksmith contracts, but usually what people are asking, currently what people are asking this question in relation to is Mert. Mert needs you to get 2,000 item levels, loot levels, before he'll let you work with him. That's because he wants you to have a certain amount of power, because you're going to need it. Because when you do patron variants, they are harder and they're more restrictive, and they require you to go further to complete them. So he's trying to make sure that you have the power to do that with. So I personally don't recommend using blacksmith contracts to bump your item levels to unlock Mert. Just open chests. Just you spend your gems on chests, buy chests, earn a lot of chests in events, and open them. And that will raise your item levels naturally, while also improving your gear and giving you the power you're going to need for when you do unlock Mert. Man, my beard is bothering me today. I don't know why. Dino J, I just started Azaka farming. Is it better to run Companions of the Hall minus Caddy Bree for Freely, or swap any non-lawful members of Companions Hall for lawful to take advantage of Freely's buff? I find this depends on this is a crunchy answer. I find this depends on the attack speed of the champions you'd be swapping in, and how much of a bonus are you getting. If you just want to kind of, if you have Freely, sure, you can build kind of the lawful thing around him if you're running lawful to do that, because that helps to apply, it gives you a better chance to apply his debuffs. That's going to give you more gold. If you don't necessarily want to worry about that, if you don't have Freely, then yeah, you're running, Companions of the Hall and swapping out Companions of the Hall for any better gold find contributors. And you can fiddle around and swap people in and out and see what's happening, and if you're getting better increases. It's just that Freely's kind of a blind guess, because you don't know. It doesn't show how many stacks. There's no interface that allows you to know how many stacks that you're getting with Freely. So you're just kind of crossing your fingers and hoping. But yeah. Tyrrell DJ, is it possible to sort the DPS table in ascending or descending values? I think you mean this one up here. And no, it's not, and you shouldn't be using it. You should just be using base DPS down here. I kind of went on a rant on this yesterday. I will rant on this all the time. Base DPS and average DPS, as you'll notice up here, mine doesn't even say base DPS anymore. Base DPS is a lie. Average DPS, it doesn't lie as much, which is why I allow it to be here. And why I've chosen it over base DPS. But all I look at when I'm trying to determine if the changes I've made were any good or not is my bud. Does it take a little while longer to figure out if you've made good changes or not? Yes. But the general rule of thumb is when you're making these changes, do you instantly see this hit get refreshed? Or does it time down like this, where it's like 5 minutes ago? If it takes, 30 seconds to a minute to see a new high hit come in, that means your change wasn't great. Probably. But if it refreshes right away, it's probably pretty good. And I say this because none of this matters. Like if you're changed, you always want to build a formation so that one champion is doing 100% of your damage. Always. That's because you're focusing all the power in your formation onto one champion to do the highest amount of damage. That's how the game works. They don't explain that to you very well, but that's how the game works. So that's what you want to be your focus on, and that one champion is going to be reflected right here. This tells you who your highest, heaviest hitter is. It just does. And if you'll notice, this says Korth should be doing all of my damage, and he may very well be, but Selise did the highest hit at some point in the past. My Bud was set off of Selise. Is what it is. Is what it is. Oh, hey, let's level up. All right. Colby Winden. If the base damage of your DPS champion is set at 1 E100, does it mean they're able to easily kill any creature with 1 E100 HP? This kind of loops back to what I just said. Your base DPS doesn't mean anything. Base DPS is a lie. I have a guide for this. It's Bud 101. And kind of it explains base DPS and average DPS and tells you why those aren't really reliable and why you shouldn't be using those to determine things. What you want to do, what I will say is if your Bud, hey, now we're down to Korth actually being the one. Your Bud is actually now showing Korth as doing the damages, and you can see it resets roughly every time he attacks. It didn't there, but yeah, there it goes. Reset again. If the damage that you show here with your hit, so that top line that says hit 7.09 E64 damage, if that is the damage of something, then yes, it will kill it. Not your Bud, because your Bud is your actual damage per second, not your damage per hit. But you would look at the hit portion of this to determine if you're actually doing enough damage. What is the free play event pity timer? I once got 5 silver chests in a row. Scarlet Adept, no you didn't. Not for the same champion. I hate to say that, but I mean, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say no you didn't. If you rotate through different champions, sure, you'll get up to 9 silver chests. Because the pity timer is 4. You would do 3, you would get 3 silvers in a row, and then your 4th chest would be a gold. If you can prove that it did happen by your journal, like the loot journal up here, then you would submit a ticket and report it, because that would be then a bug. That would be a major bug, but it would track and show you. Yeah, it's just not really gonna happen. But those pity timers are only for each champion has their own pity timers. Should focus on Gear and Korth or Nova? Both. He's both in my main formation. Then there you go. I have Murd unlocked, and next week I'll unlock second patron. Yeah, gear them both up equally. I would gear all 3 champions up equally, quite frankly. Just split up your token usage. Just rotate, alternate, and do free plays. Alternate for each one. How does Selise compare to Havalar? They share similarities, so I'm not sure who fits what situation. That's kind of what you kind of got to figure out. They have different things. Havalar is really all about that fiend life. Havalar is all about that fiend life. So she's going to be in her best form when she's fighting against fiends. Whereas Selise is, she's good against magical range stuff, which can apply to a lot of different scenarios. Yeah, and has just kind of some different functionality in terms of her stances. So, that's the thing. They're different tools to be used against different things. So you expand your tool set by, like, your potential tools available by picking up all the champions, gearing them up as equally as possible, and then when you're playing, figuring out, okay, this is a situation where I've got fiends, and I'm going to use Havalar. Oh, these aren't fiends. But they use lots of ranged attacks. Well, now Selise is going to come in, right? Do you think it's possible for newish players to complete all the Selise variants? Which right-hand favor upgrades or champions would you rush for to try? Right-hand favor upgrades? Oh, you mean blessings? Oh, I mean any global blessings that are damage based. So just usually the tier 1 ones first. Those are the easy ones. But that's not going to be easy in like Baldur's Gate or Icewind Dale. So the other campaigns, you could get those probably to help you out a bit. But really just farming favor. just farming favor will help you complete the Selise variants. That's going to get you more damage. And I know it's hard. You're going to get to the boss, and you're not going to be able to beat the boss. There goes my voice again. I think it's mornings. My voice just doesn't like me talking a lot in the morning. Farming favor, like you might get to the boss and you might not be able to beat the boss, but if the boss can't beat you, sit on that level and farm that gold. Kill all those mobs that are coming out. Or drop back to the boss level before that and try to do some Azaka farming and upgrade. Like the key is each time you go in, you do a free play, you just try to get an increased amount of favor. That's really all you can do, and that's all you can hope for if you're not beating the boss. That's the best way to then move forward and then complete those variants. And you've got another week, a little more than a week now, to still do that. So you don't have to be in a rush. Just be patient, patiently work on your favor just like you would in a campaign, and earn more via free plays. Jarlaxle actually a good DPS. He seems very lackluster. It depends on who he's paired with, right? Like if you're pairing him with Krull, that's a bad pairing, because Krull needs you to hit the things that are closest to the front line, in the same way that it's a bad pairing with Korth, right? So it depends on who you're paired with. When you first start off and you just have the core champions, he's a fantastic DPS. He pairs well with all of them. But then as you get more favor, other DPS are going to do a lot better than he is, because you get into the power curve of the other DPS. Early on, though, he is a DPS and he provides gold, which kind of, and the gold makes him better. So he just kind of feeds into himself. But he doesn't support real well. So, usually as soon as you get a swap in his slot that is actually a support, like Stokey, Paulton, and Baloth, who are a support and provide gold find, they're going to be better for you than Jarlaxle, and then you would switch to a different DPS, right? So it just depends. Otherwise, you're dealing with a DPS or a gold trough at some point, which some people don't like having to deal with. They're like, well, I swapped from Jarlaxle to Minsk, but then I couldn't upgrade my champions for like 15 levels. Well, sure, but keep going. Maybe 25 levels in, if you can push 25 level deeper, you may start earning more, and you may have gotten through that gold trough because you lost gold find, and then you may have earned, but the continued upgrade of gold as you go deeper will then peak out past that, and you'll end up making more gold without Jarlaxle. Once all the variants are done and we're down to running free plays for chests, who out of the three heroes is best to focus on the free event? Frowning Fish. Everyone. I'm always going to say the same thing here. All three of them. I recommend spreading out your tokens. If you're a veteran player like me, this is for new players. If you're a veteran player like me, I already have full epics on the other two champions, and they have a lot of item levels, so I only do stuff for the newest champion. But when I'm on a new player account, I spread my tokens out, because I want those champions to be functional when I use them in variants, which means they all need to be at least in blues. Now, if you can get them all to at least in blues, and then it's just pick whoever you think you're going to use more based off your current gameplay style and who you have available in slots. Like, if you need that tank option in slot 11, and you think you're going to use that more than Selise in slot 12, then focus a little more on Nova. But, if you already have Averin, say, in slot 11, then maybe you aren't as worried about Nova, because Nova's only going to come in for certain variants where you need a tank and Nova's the only one available, because normally you'd be using Averin as a buffer there, right? Like, so you have to kind of make those decisions on your own at a certain point. My recommendation is always just kind of going to be spread them out equally. And that's the next question. It's like everybody, and they even said, I know your general advice is to split up your investments in events. Is there a time when a champion who justifies going all in on their chests in terms of using bounty contracts to farm for free play? Again, I burn all my bounty contracts every event, and I do this even on a new player account. And then on a new player account, I spread up my tokens between all the champions. Functionality for me trumps everything. As you get further in, make your own choices. If you've got everyone in at least blues and you just want to try to go all in for one champion, go for it. That's a choice you have to make. It's a choice you have to make as the person using your account. Don't Don't let somebody say, oh, ignore these champions and only get this one. Because, I mean, what if that's... What if that champion then ends up getting nerfed? Right? Like, you never know. It happens. It happens. People who've gone all in on some champions in the past, like with blacksmithing, with bounty contracts and with blacksmithing contracts, with cash purchases, then that champion gets either balanced and or nerfed or bug fixed, however you want to look at it. Then they feel real bad. They feel real bad. And some of them have even quit the game over it, right? I don't want you to be in that position. I want you to enjoy the game. And to me, that means just distributing things as equally as possible so that they are as functional as possible across the board so that when you need them, you can do good things with them. Yeah. Can you wait until next year with Korth? When he drop off the list since he's a year 2 event champ? Right. No, yeah. I mean, again, once a champion is no longer going to be in an event, you won't be able to do their variants in the event, which is usually the easier way to do variants. But you can do those, again, those numbered goals, like reaching a certain level. You can do those at any point in time. They arrive with a champion, but they don't have to be done when that champion is in the event. If you don't do all the variants, then you would need to go do a time gate to finish off Korth's variants. But Korth's variants didn't seem... I mean, I feel like as long as you get favor, you're going to be fine. And if you do miss one, that's fine. Trust me, you're not going to... Most people aren't going to fully epic out Korth this event. And will at some point need to do a time gate for him. So, you know, I wouldn't worry too much about that. In general, I'm not somebody who's like, oh, go all in on the champion that won't be in the event next year. No. Because what if that champ isn't a champ that you're really going to end up using a whole lot? Well, you just wasted a lot of time and energy, right? So, you know, I don't know. I rate functionality over whether or not they're arriving next year in the event. In events in subsequent years, do variants reset, or is it only free plays? It's only free plays. Going to complete all quests for the event, but I think I can only focus on farming chests for one. No, you can't. That's not true. Green tomato. Only focusing on farming chests for one means you're only going to be able to... You think you're only going to be able to do one free play. Really? Really? You can easily alternate. You can easily alternate between them. You know, build out your formation. Save your formation over here at the bottom left. Each champion's formation layout is going to have bunches of save options. You can rotate through just as easily as you could do for one. That's not real. How can we get the new skin for Human? I don't think there's a new skin out yet. Spoiler alert. Yeah, there's nothing here to click. So there's no new skin out yet that I know of. Again, if people are... Darius, and everyone, if people are leaking information that they find in game files, don't. Yeah, just... I don't know. Don't. Those are spoilers. Don't bring those in here. Don't generally bring those in the community, because literally there are times when we saw things added to the game that then didn't arrive for 6 months or more. Just because they finished it doesn't mean it's arriving anytime soon. So, yeah, just stay away from stuff like that, or that it's arriving at all. Who knows? Plans change. Doing Korth free plays, trying to build up favors. You recommended watching the screen. So look to see the E12 or greater you recommend before I move on to a variant. I did hit Y and looked at Korth, but I think I'm looking at the wrong place. Oh, so what you want to look at is your overall favor. So you can either look here in Blessings and look at whatever your Joaquin Phoenix's favor is. It's the 4th one down. Or, well, if you don't have all the campaigns open, it could be more. But look for Joaquin's favor. and see what the total is, and also look at your run. Like, this is whatever you're earning on this adventure will be here, and if that number is greater than whatever you had before, that's going to be your new high watermark. So you just want to get that up to, you know, E12-ish if you can. You know, and this is what's good for, you know, potions and stuff, right? This weekend, if you have Azaka farming with Jarlaxle is going to get you more gold because he's got a bonus to Master of Piracy. So keep things like that in mind too. Is there a way to block a hero's ultimate for being clicked by familiars? Nope. Which free play for the event is easiest to farm favors? It's either going to be Korth or Nova, depending on whether you want to use one tank or, like, if you only have like Nayeli, if you have to use Nayeli as a tank, it's probably going to be Nova's. If you can use anyone else that buffs back more than one column, then Korth's probably. But try them both out and see which one works better for you. Should I use the Shara's DPS with 3 humans, 2 elf half bonds, or use other DPS and wait to have more champs? Augusta Gate. Try them both out and see what happens. A 3-2 doesn't mean a whole lot. You want a 3-3 usually at minimum, because then you're activating both of those bonds for Ashara. So you're not going to have as much damage with a 3-2. But it's really just going to depend on who you have available. So you just got to try those out. There's no way for me to tell you. I know a lot of people are just going to say Ashara, but literally items matter early on. Items matter a lot. And if you have really good items on another DPS, they may end up being better. And the champion bench you have. I mean, maybe your champion bench supports somebody else better. When I see a column, Selise buffs all the way back as a tank. Yeah, I know. We talked about that earlier. So does Nova. So, you know. Well, Selise doesn't buff all the way back as a tank, actually. Selise buff back 2 columns. Potentially 3. But Nova does. So, I mean, you have other tank options. I'm just saying, who is your best tank? Because if you're brand new, you may not have a lot of gear on Nova and Selise. And Nayeli may be the best geared for you and be the most durable tank for you. Especially because Nova and Selise are all the way down here in the slots 11 and 12, and early on you're not even going to get there when you're farming for favor, so you're going to have to use like a Nayeli and maybe a Tyrell, or if you have a Briv, right? You're going to have different options depending on how much favor you have. So and once, as you get more favor, your options change, and then you have to make adjustments. I don't understand how Ashara works. My DPS is always Minsk. How do I use Ashara's DPS? Well, you put Ashara in the position where you're focusing all the buffs on her, and then you pick Potpourri, and then you pick, for your second bond, you hopefully pick something that there is 3 or more of in your formation, but, you know, if not 3 or more of, then, you know, something that there's 2 of. If not, then just hopefully something that there's 1 of, right? Like, that's how you use Ashara. It's just any DPS, when it's a hot swap DPS, it's basically someone that can just come in, and as long as they're in the DPS position, which is wherever you're focusing all your buffs in on, that's where they go. And that's how you use them. Is it meant to give brains on earlier unnovad stages if you go back to level 5? No. Can't do that. What's health share? Is it just abilities like Nova's, everyone gets extra health ability? Yeah. Yeah. Those abilities are only on tanks. Not all, you know, not necessarily, as we saw. I mean, now Selise has it, which is great, but like Nayeli only gets that in her tanking spec, which is Oath of Devotion. She doesn't get it in Vengeance. Vengeance isn't a tanking spec. That's just a support support buffing spec. She doesn't get as much health in that spec, and she doesn't share it. So, yeah, health share. The abilities have different names that are flavored to each individual champion, but they're all sharing X% of health. Why do you want Nova's discovery buff to apply to all champs? Is it enough if the DPS is effective? Because of her, because of that Heroes of Erois synergy buff, where she contributes to her pool based off the number of champions that it applies to, and then she's buffed by the pool. If you can apply it to 8 champions, it ends up being a larger number than if you just went the other buff. Like the other spec choice. So you get more buff edges. I did that one. When you have a familiar just randomly hitting ultimate abilities, will it hit the toggle or ignore it? It'll hit it. It's an on the ultimate bar. It'll hit it. How much does Softcap Selise buff currently with at least blue equips and low? I mean, it depends. I don't know. If we can Softcap, we'll see it. But yeah, off the top of my head, I don't know. I mean, you can go do that math for yourself. It's all the numbers are in my guide. Would Artemis observe that attack cooldown? So, I have a guide to Artemis and I have a guide to Archon, and both of them have tables where I have gone in and tested out what abilities get observed and what don't. And I'm telling you this because in the background I am trying to open that guide so that I can tell you if I tested and found that it worked or not. So just give me one more second and I will get to that table. Let's see. So Artemis and slot 2 Korth, rapid training. I have it listed as broken ? Because it looked like it was observing it, but it didn't look like it was applying. Let me see if Archon did the same thing, because he probably did. Probably did. Slot 2 Korth. Yeah, I have that listed as broken ? Because it seemed like it was. It seemed like it was showing up in his formation in the incoming buffs, but then it didn't look like it was necessarily changing anything. So yeah, I don't know. Could be broken. Could be broken. But it might not be. I don't know. Keep in mind the maximum attack speed, as we were talking about before. We were talking about this yesterday, and we were talking in Discord earlier this week. The maximum attack speed is whatever your animation attack, the attack animation is, regardless of what the number says. So it's also affected by if there's even enemies out to attack. So because of restrictions, I have 0 heal or shield options on a variant. Any general tips or tricks in these types of situations beyond favor farming and consumables? If you're talking about like creating more survivability, adding an extra tank with health share, right? Making sure Nile, if you're using Nile, she's in Devotion Spec, will give you more health share. But yeah, generally just buffing up the health of your champions via having more tanks is going to make you more survivable. If you don't have healers or shielders. Now, Selise comes in now because she can protect in one of her stances. She can protect, against, she can reduce some damage going back a couple slots against certain things. And that can be useful too. So just look for stuffs like that if you don't have heals and shields. Look for, party damage reduction. Are there any Modron Core part events? No. Nope. How do you toggle the base attack screen? I was toggling. So on Selise, I was changing the base attack by toggling her ultimate. I was just hitting her ultimate and moving her through the stances. I was just using my hotkey for that. And that's whatever hotkey her ultimate is on. Right now it's 3 on the screen because there's only 3 ultimates showing up. But it could potentially be 10 because she's in slot 12, so she would be at the end. I'm a beginner struggling on Dolgrim's Incursion. Yeah. I only have a few available heroes. Even at E11 with event blessings and a full epic potion stack, I'm stuck at wave 150 out of 175. So you need more favor. You need a lot more favor. So even E12 probably won't help. Yeah, you don't have to wait till next year. If you're already at E11, I would just suggest going out and farming more favor. E12 may not be enough. I think in my guide I put E12 plus. So it may be that you need E15. I don't know. Because the number you're going to need is based off the number of champions you're missing. And if you have champions in there that aren't contributing anything, because you have like Jarlaxle listed, well, Jarlaxle isn't your DPS in that situation because you also have Delina and Ashara in your formation. And Delina is probably, your DPS may be Delina. If your DPS is Ashara, then both Delina and Jarlaxle are wasted. So you have to consider those lost slots and get even more favor to take the place of those. So it may be that you need E15 or more. You just have to keep gaining favor. And again, you want to test this out in a free play. You want to test this out in a free play first. So just jumping into Dolgrim's Incursion, which it sounds like you did, is not the best way to do it. Jump into a free play, self-restrict yourself, see how far you can go, because then, if you fail, you know, I just need to push further for favor, and then you can just swap in a full formation and then treat that as a favor run. Test your might before you fight. Exactly, Maverick Pixel. Is there an optimal level for speed in Avernus? Ooh, I don't know. I've never tried to figure that out because I've never really tried to speed run anything in Avernus. I mean, I put speed champions in and I go, but I've never tried to, like, that's not a place where I would go speed farm gems. So I've never looked. Yeah, as you said, there's a lot of armored bosses there. Yeah, and that's basically what kills speed runs. So probably not. I don't know. You'd have to go try it. There are some fan sites out there that list off like the enemies per level and then bosses and stuff. And if they list the armored stuff too, you can go see if there's anything that has that's all fiends but doesn't have an armored boss. If it's got an armored boss, it's just a waste of time. Is Nova a good DPS? No. Shout DPS is my Jarlaxle right now. I'm curious Manson Monster. I'm curious what's going on in your formation that at your wall has your tank, which should be in the front line, doing more damage than a DPS. Very curious what's going on in your formation. It tells me that there's something going wrong in the formation. But you need to take that to Discord, to the #formations channel. Is the Azaka Patron Golden Epic the only golden you can acquire free? No. Each patron has a golden epic you can acquire. They're all for evergreens, though. So it's not like you're getting them for anywhere else. But each evergreen champion has, or not each evergreen, each patron has an evergreen champion they will give you a golden epic for. Well, not give it to you. You have to earn it. Is one enemy going invincible after using Shaka's ultimate intended? Andromac, when you say invincible, what's happening here, there could be bugs going on. Maybe you do mean invincible. Generally, what happens when you're on a boss level and you kill everything but one enemy, what happens is you've now lost all the ramping buffs coming off of literally invincible AoE ults. No. That doesn't... not a boss. No, but you're on a boss level, Andromac, yes? Real quick yes or no in chat. No. Does it show that it has health or that it has no health? We're gonna QA this right here, because these are the questions you have to ask to determine what's going on. When you use your alt, somebody's saying when you use your alt, your people will 0% attack. Okay, so submit a bug. Submit a bug report. Submit a bug report. Yeah. Submit a bug report. Tell them what's going on. This is not... Normally when we talk about... you use an ultimate, you kill off things, and there's only one left. Normally what we're talking about is you've lost ramping damage from all the other enemies on the screen and can no longer kill something. But sounds like what you're talking about. If you could, yeah, it continues for several seconds and then die to attacks after. That's a bug. Submit a bug report. Just click at the bottom right, click support. Say okay. It'll open in a new browser tab, and then you just submit all the information. Submit all that information so they can dig into it and look at it. Can you demonstrate how to do a Zaka farm if time permits? Time does not permit. I'm just going to tell you that right now. I did, however, I did this on my own channel, Twitch TV/Gaarawarr down there, on Wednesday. So look for Idle Champions from Wednesday, which was the 11th. Towards the end of that VOD, just so you could jump towards the end of the VOD, I pushed real deep in a Selise formation, and I did a modern Azaka farm. I think I didn't fiddle with it too much, so I only got like a 30 stack mob. only. But I got a 30 stack mob singled out and farmed it. So yeah, go watch that. That's my most recent Azaka farming explanation. And it's only going to be available on that VOD for like another week and a half. And then Twitch deletes those after like a couple weeks. So get it while you can. I only have one character in my first, 9th, and 10th slots. Who should I seek to obtain first for these slots? So slot 1, I don't even have to go look, or Kira. Slot 10, not even going to go look, Havalar. Slot 9, Ayla. There you go. So Orkira, slot 1, Ayla, slot 9, Havalar, slot 10. Those are my recommendations if you're asking me, because I find all of those three to be champions that I use a lot across, any variant they're available in. They're going in usually. And then Havalar is just, I find her functional against fiends and stuff, and is also speedy. Jaheira better than Jarlaxle? Shabaka, in a vacuum, if all you have in that slot is Jaheira and Jarlaxle, and you're trying to figure out who to use as a DPS, Jaheira better than Jarlaxle, probably. Yeah, probably. You're not going to get as much gold early, but she's probably gonna work well for you as long as you're killing. Probably. Jaheira better than Jarlaxle in terms of support, yes. Because Jarlaxle is not a support. All he provides is gold find, and that's not enough as a support. Jaheira support's better than Jarlaxle. Brand new to the game, just made a mistake while exploring and started the challenge where I can only use characters with a K in their name. O and a K. O and K. I only have the dwarf and Korth. Am I screwed? Well, I mean, you've got Brunor and you've got Korth. You won't have Niali. You won't have Jarlaxle. You'll have Calliope once you get there, so you've got to earn enough gold to get there. But what probably happened is you started that before it was green, which means you're not going to have enough favor to get there. Who else will you be able to get? Oh, jeez. Makos, real deep in there again. Man, Nova, you'll be able to use Nova. And Archon if you get all the way to 12. But yeah, you're going to need a lot of favor if you're brand new and you only have those things. So probably going to bail again. Yeah, this is why I said at the top of this show. Look at who you have available before you attempt variants. They need to be shown as green, but then you need to look at the restrictions and figure out how many champions you have available for every champion, for every formation slot that's going to be empty. You need to get more favor, probably at least EO1 more favor than you would normally have for that. And I think the 75 variants usually only need like EO4 or EO5 favor to make them show as green. So if you're losing like 6 or 7 slots, we'll just say 6, and you're only going to have like 4 champs, you're going to need to at least get to E10 before you attempt it. At least E10 before you attempt it. So yeah, it's just bail, go get more favor from free plays. What is affiliation doing? Affiliation is basically a determination of who is in a group, so that you know. In this case, like Heroes of Erois, there's a bunch. And members of that affiliation, a lot of times, if you have a lot of them, they'll have an ability, much like this Erois synergy, where there's some kind of group thing. Now, not all affiliations have that, but some do. And really, the only place this comes into play, outside of these synergy abilities, the only place this comes into play is Walnut. Walnut has a spec choice that's based off affiliations. Let me get to here. Co-signers or temporary alliance. So co-signers is the spec you choose if you're just using C-team people. But temporary alliance buffs if they have an affiliation other than the C-team. So if they don't have any affiliation, they don't get anything. But if they have some kind of affiliation, then they can be used as buffers for Walnut here. That's the only time really affiliations come into play outside of their own affiliation and just their own inner buffings. But basically it's telling you these are, lore-wise, a group of related champions. When doesn't Nova's discovery ability seem to affect Why doesn't Nova's discovery ability seem to affect DPS? The digital magus, I'm guessing you mean base DPS, and that's because base DPS is a lie and you should stop using it. We said this like we've 3 times now. We've said it 3 times. That makes it true. Yeah. Stop using base DPS. It will factor into Bud. And Bud is what you should be using. But the true answer is because base DPS literally tells you a static version of your base DPS. Base DPS is not dynamically affected by timed or random events, stacking, or enemy debuffs. Stacking is what Nova does. She collects those hearts and minds and stacks them against her buff. So it's dynamically affected by stacking. Instead, static modifiers are used to represent those upgrades' contribution to your DPS. So it's just picking a number. It's just picking a number and it's using it. And no matter how much you get, it's never changing. Useful to compare formations. No, it's not. But may not fully reflect total damage done to enemies. That part's correct. So yeah, I mean, it tells you in the tooltip, hi, I'm a lie. I think it's got a very high, I think it's got 20 charisma. Base DPS canonically has 20 charisma because it fools people into thinking it does things, but it doesn't. It's lying. It's lying and it's getting away with it. Is there any character that you pick only a certain path with because the others are not as good no matter the setup? Ooh. Well, Nova, right? Well, no, it's not no matter the setup. But most of the time I'm going to pick Nova's mass appeal because that's going to give me the biggest buff. Are there exceptions to that rule? Yes. And generally speaking, that's how most of them work. Zorbu has 3 specializations. And when you're farming him, you pick the right one. And when you're using him as a DPS, you pick the left one. And you never use the middle one because for the life of all of us, ever since Zorbu got changed, none of us can figure out what that middle spec is for. And the devs haven't chimed in to explain it to us. I think they're as confused as we are. These are the last couple questions. Is there any mission where you use all 12 slots? No. I've got all purple gear and 10 familiars. Is it worth 70k gems to get an 11th? 70k? Yeah. Sure. Why not? 70k isn't that bad. Or should I get silvers and some gold to try to get shinies? Grab your familiars and functionality, and if you have a place, yeah, I feel like having an 11th would, yeah, grab the 11th. 70k isn't bad. It's once they start getting 100k and above that, maybe you want some more chests before that. I only just got the 200k Zorbu on stream yesterday. That was a achievement for me. It took me a while to have excess because I didn't necessarily need familiars, but I just wanted to mark it off my list. Yeah. Who's in the C team? The C team is Cathris, Dinar, Rosie, and Walnut. Cathris, Dinar, Rosie, and Walnut. Cathris, slot 1. Dinar, slot 2. Rosie, slot 10. And Walnut, slot 8. I think that's right. Yeah. Yep. And that's it, folks. That's all 45. That was 45 questions. And we went a little longer on the tutorial, so that was pretty good. Thanks for hanging out. We just said Colby Winden. If base DPS is a lie, how do you build formations as a new player? Bud, right? Like, well, you kind of have to learn how to build formations. I have a guide for that. Go read Formations 101. Here, I'll put this into chat. Gar guides. Go read Formations 101. And that explains how you do it without using base DPS or average DPS. And then when you get to your wall is really when you start making changes to see what's going to be the best. And you do that with Bud. All right, we are out of here. On the way out, we are going to listen to one last song. This is, we didn't have a song for Korth Nova that I can recall. So we are instead listening to the Elucidation of Elminster. This was written with Ed Greenwood, joined Dylan and Jason to write this. So it's pretty cool. Have a great weekend. I will see you next week.
It was on the day the dragon came. I saw him standing there.
Awesome.
Yeah.